I woke up inside my own mouth. I woke choking on something slick, warm and impossibly alive, the taste of copper and decay filling my mouth. Something had me, and it wasn't letting go. The walls around me throbbed like a heartbeat, slick and elastic, pressing and contracting as if the space itself was breathing with awareness. My hands, or what I thought were hands, slid across teeth like jagged cliffs, enamel sharp beneath my fingertips, wet with a heat I couldn't identify. The tongue rolled beneath me, curling like a muscle tentacle, forcing me forward while whispers pressed against my ears in a language I almost recognized. A shadow streaked across the molars, impossibly thin yet human-shaped, moving with intention, as if guiding me toward something I didn't want to see. Saliva pooled in rivers around me, reflecting distorted shapes, faces that blinked from the wet surfaces, some smiling, others screaming silently. I tried to scream, but my voice fractured and dissolved into the walls, swallowed before it could escape, leaving only my pounding heart. Something brushed my leg fingers. Small limbs? They slid along me with wet precision, crawling like insects, but eerily aware of my panic. A cavity stretched above, infinite and dark, and I sensed movement. Other forms trapped in impossible positions, waiting, breathing, watching me. The whispers grew louder, layering words I didn't understand, but felt in my bones. Come, join, leave, never leave. I stumbled across the slick floor, the tongue twisting beneath me, carrying me deeper into a maze of enamel ridges and flesh that pulsed in time with my fear. Veins ran along the walls like tunnels, tiny shapes crawling inside them, some pressing their faces to the surface, eyes wide and pleading. I realized the taste of blood wasn't mine alone. It clung to the air, thick and coppery, mixed with something else, something alive inside me. The shadow darted again, leaving behind a trail of stretched wet skin that shimmered unnaturally before dissolving into the walls. I pressed against a molar slick and warm and felt it contract under my weight, almost communicating, almost alive in a way I couldn't name. The whispers formed names mine, and others I had long forgotten, echoing in voices too human and too wrong to ignore. I looked into a gap between the teeth and saw eyes staring back at me, small and grotesque, blinking in perfect synchronization as if judging my presence. The tongue lifted like a bridge, pulsing, and I saw shapes beneath it, twisted figures. Familiar faces warped into something unreadable. Something skittered across the cavity floor, dragging something that looked like a shadow of me, wet and trembling, whispering secrets I hadn't spoken. I tried to crawl, but the walls shifted, veins moving like rivers of muscle, forcing me toward the darkness above the incisors. A gust of air or illusion of air rushed past, carrying the metallic scent of blood and the faint memory of screams from elsewhere. Shadows stretched unnaturally, forming faces I knew, others grotesque beyond recognition, and each blink felt like a heartbeat stolen from me. I pressed my palms to the walls, wet and elastic, and felt movement inside the flesh, something mimicking me, something learning how I feared. The whispers became voices, layering over themselves, repeating my words, twisting them into meanings I couldn't comprehend, but felt deep in my chest. I glimpsed other bodies moving in folds of the mouth twisted, trapped, alive and aware, writhing in ways that should be impossible. The tongue coiled beneath me, rising like a bridge, forcing me toward a cavity that pulsed and stretched as if the mouth itself was opening its maw wider. I realized the shadows weren't passive. They were pulling at me, shaping me, testing me. A constant reminder that I was no longer in control. A flash of movement revealed something familiar, a face, twisted and wrong, smiling at me from between the molars, whispering a warning I couldn't hear. The walls shifted, folding into corridors lined with teeth and veins, leading me deeper while the whispers pressed urgent secrets I couldn't decipher. The taste of iron filled my mouth, thick and choking, as I crouched against a molar, listening to voices that promised revelation or death, and feeling the impossibility of escape. Even as I waited, the space pulsed around me, alive, aware, patient, and I realized that whatever this mouth was, it was only beginning to notice me. I found a door growing in my throat. I woke choking again, except this time something hard pressed against the back of my throat, scraping upward like wood, forcing itself through soft tissue, demanding to be acknowledged. Each breath rattled against the object, a rhythmic tapping that felt purposeful, as if something on the other side waited impatiently for me to open it. My tongue felt swollen, pressed tightly against something smooth and flat, the shape unmistakable edges, corners, a surface that didn't belong inside a living mouth. When I swallowed, the door shifted, clicking faintly, a tiny latch trying to disengage, scraping inside me like a splintered secret begging for light. I crawled to the mirror, throat pulsing, and watched the skin ripple as the outline pushed outward, forming a rectangular bulge beneath my jaw. The door vibrated, trembling with anticipation, emitting faint whispers that echoed through my skull, each syllable stitched from voices I recognized, but never wanted to hear again. My reflection warped, throat pulsing violently, the bulge rising and falling like a trapped heartbeat, pushing the skin outward as if it wanted to greet me. A warm pressure built behind my tongue, pushing it aside, forcing my mouth open until I tasted blood, saliva, and an unfamiliar wooden bitterness. The door began to push through, tiny hinges scraping bone, dripping with strings of flesh as it slid forward, like something birthing itself from inside me. I gagged as it emerged, the surface carved with symbols resembling teeth and eyes, arranged in a pattern that shifted when I blinked. My lips stretched around it, torn and burning, while the door dangled halfway out of my mouth, hanging by tendrils that pulsed like veins. A soft knocking echoed from within, 3 slow taps that vibrated through my skull, as if someone politely asking permission to enter or exit. When I touched the door, warmth rushed through my fingertips, followed by a pulse that wasn't mine, syncing with a rhythm deep inside my jaw. The symbols rearranged, forming something like a face, twisted in a grin that stretched obscenely across the wooden surface. My throat clenched painfully and relaxed, as if my body had surrendered control to something older, patient, and deeply familiar. The knocking returned, louder this time, shaking the door and rattling my teeth as the hinges strained against the flesh that still clung to them. I tried to scream, but the sound echoed inside the door instead of the room, trapped behind wood that absorbed the noise hungrily. Something whispered my name from behind the door, dragging each syllable long and wet, like it was savoring the sound of someone it already owned. A low hum vibrated the air, and I felt the door swell, growing larger, stretching my jaw outward until my vision blurred with tears. The wooden surface cracked slightly, revealing a thin black gap, a sliver of darkness that throbbed as if breathing in the taste of freedom. Warm fluid dripped from the opening, sliding across my tongue, tasting like a mixture of earth, rot, and something disturbingly sweet. The murmurs grew clearer, forming sentences that wrapped around my thoughts, promising truths I'd never wanted, but suddenly felt starved for. My throat spasmed violently, forcing the door wider, the gap yawning open like an eye waking from a centuries-long sleep. Inside the darkness, shapes shifted, thin limbs, twisted silhouettes, and faces that looked almost like mine, but stretched impossibly long. The air around me tightened, vibrating with tension, as if the room held its breath, waiting to see whether I'd let the thing step through. A gust of cold air blew from inside the door, carrying the scent of soil recently disturbed, as if something had been digging upward toward me. My fingertips tingled as I felt the door pulse again, beckoning, urging me to pull it wider, to finally accept the inevitable invitation. The symbols aligned one final time, forming a message I understood instinctively, etched directly into my thoughts, like a memory planted long ago. The door's gap widened, darkness spilling out in thin wisps that curled around my face, whispering promises of answers and escape. I felt the last threads of flesh resisting, straining, ready to snap, as something behind the door pressed forward, eager, patient, hungry. With a final shudder, the door clicked, latch sliding free, and I realized opening it wasn't a choice anymore. It was already happening. The darkness stretched toward me, warm and familiar, and I felt an overwhelming certainty. Whatever waited behind that door knew me intimately and had always planned to return. Something crawled out of my throat. The door hanging from my mouth shuddered violently, its hinges grinding against bone as something on the other side pushed harder. Curling darkness spilling through the widening crack. Warm air pulsed out, carrying the scent of moldy soil mixed with something sweet and metallic, a perfume that settled on my tongue and erased my sense of distance. My jaw distended painfully, spreading wider than any human hinge should allow. Yet the movement felt rehearsed, like my body remembered a position I'd never used. The door cracked further, splintering softly, and thin fingers emerged, too many joints, too long, coated in glistening fluid that dripped onto my chest like slow syrup. Each fingertip tapped my skin deliberately, as if testing texture, tracing lines only it could see, drawing patterns that pulsed with recognition. The rest of its hand followed, sliding between my teeth, skin stretched too thin over bone, glowing faintly with an inner warmth that didn't belong here. I tried to back away, but the fingers tightened, gripping my jaw with impossible strength, guiding my head lower as if positioning me for something ritualistic. The door widened, hinges screaming, and a second hand slipped through, clutching the edge of the wood like a swimmer, climbing out of deep water. My throat vibrated with a low hum, a call and response rhythm between my pulse and whatever pressed against the doorway inside me. A face appeared next, long, narrow, eyes too reflective, skin textured like damp wood left under moonlight, features carved rather than grown. It blinked slowly, eyelids vertical instead of horizontal, each movement scratching faintly, releasing flecks of darkness that drifted like ash. When it inhaled, my chest expanded too, as if we shared lungs, breath sinking in a way that felt older than language, older than identity. The creature pulled itself further, shoulders popping through the frame, its body unfurling from the darkness, like something grown inside a forgotten cavity. Veins of black light flickered beneath its skin, pulsing in patterns that matched the symbols etched into the wooden door still dangling from my mouth. Its knees bent backward, unfolding like a hinge, and it stepped onto the floor with a wet sound, limbs adjusting to gravity with eerie enthusiasm. It reached toward my face, tracing a finger down my cheek, leaving behind a trail that shimmered like wet ink, burning slightly where it touched. I felt the mark pulse, echoing through my jaw, throat, and chest, as if linking us, binding our movements with an invisible thread. The creature leaned close, pressing its forehead to mine, whispering sounds I didn't understand, yet somehow felt picking locks inside my memory. Each sound unlocked something, buried flashes of dark hallways, wet soil, teeth-shaped symbols, and the sensation of being watched from behind my own bones. The creature's breath became warm, almost comforting, carrying faint whispers encouraging me to follow, to listen, to remember why this was happening now. It stepped past me, moving on elongated limbs, exploring the room with a familiarity that made my stomach twist, as if it had lived here before. Shadows bent toward it, stretching unnaturally, welcoming it with soft movements, curling around its ankles like affectionate animals. When it turned back to me, its smile bent upward in an unnatural angle, stretching too high, revealing rows of small, shifting teeth. It tapped the wooden door, still lodged in my mouth, making the wood tremble like it responded to touch. eager for further instructions. The creature tilted its head, listening to something inside me, nodding slowly as if receiving confirmation I didn't realize I'd given. It approached, placing both hands on my shoulders, guiding me toward the mirror with gentle but unbreakable force. In the reflection, the door in my mouth glowed faintly, and faint movement rippled behind it, more shapes, more limbs, waiting their turn. The creature pressed its hand to the mirror, and the glass softened like warm wax, rippling outward as if opening another unseen doorway. A voice inside my throat echoed softly, repeating a phrase I didn't recognize, but instinctively obeyed, causing the door to throb against my teeth. The creature stepped back, gesturing toward the mirror, its elongated silhouette framed by the rippling surface as if inviting me forward. Behind the wooden door in my mouth, knocking began again, this time from several hands impatient, hungry, familiar. As the mirror pulsed open like a second mouth, I felt an overwhelming certainty that this wasn't the creature's arrival. It was only the introduction. The teeth were alive. I woke with a metallic taste lingering in my mouth, warm and iron-like, and realized the teeth along my lower jaw had shifted slightly, curling upward toward my tongue like crawling creatures. A faint murmur emanated from between them, rhythmic, as though they were attempting language, vibrating through my jawbone with pulses I could feel deep in my skull. The smallest tooth at the far back scraped sideways, a deliberate movement, and I flinched, sensing its intent to explore, touch, and perhaps communicate something I could not yet understand. I pressed my tongue to it carefully, and it recoiled like a tiny living thing, then throbbed softly, tapping in response as if trying to convey a fragile signal. My breath fogged the insides of my cheeks, and the teeth hummed in reply, vibrating in subtle patterns as though the memories of someone long dead flowed through them. One tooth slid slightly loose, revealing a hollow center that pulsed with faint light, like a miniature lantern containing something trapped, a soul or fragment pressing to escape. The sensation moved through the row, teeth curling slightly inward, leaning toward each other, forming a circle that whispered in tones only my teeth could generate together. I could feel them pressing messages through my nerves, a soft scratching rhythm that felt like Morse code built from enamel and bone, waiting for me to decipher. A sudden twinge made me gasp. The teeth vibrated violently, rattling each other, clacking like miniature jaws gnashing, as if impatient with my slow comprehension. I ran my tongue over them, and one pressed sharply against my palate. A memory flashed strangers' voices, laughter, warnings I couldn't place, but somehow felt I should recognize. The teeth were remembering, storing echoes of every mouth they had belonged to, like a living archive pressing their collective knowledge into me through sinew and nerve. A deeper rumble traveled from my molars to my jawline. The vibration pulsed like a heartbeat, syncing with my own, forming a shared rhythm I couldn't separate from their will. I tried speaking, but no words came. The teeth seemed to hum in response, each pulse articulating fragments of thought and emotion older than I could comprehend. I felt a sharp pinch. A canine had moved slightly, pressing at an angle that suggested it wanted me to understand urgency, or perhaps fear, or both at once. The soft glow returned from hollow roots, forming faint shapes of faces pressed inside each tooth, writhing as though trapped yet aware, watching me directly through enamel windows. A collective scraping sound crawled across my gums, like hundreds of nails tracing patterns in unison, forming symbols or letters meant to convey something I could not yet read. I realized the inside of my mouth had expanded subtly, corridors forming between teeth, small tunnels and chambers, creating a space larger than my skull could hold. A sudden chill ran down my spine. The teeth tapped faster, forming rhythmic warnings, vibrations I could feel in my chest, pulses that suggested something was coming from deeper inside. One tooth shifted forward aggressively, pressing hard against the tongue, and I flinched, tasting the memory of pain from a mouth that had held it centuries before. I felt a tiny ripple through the molars, a shift as if they had decided I was ready to see more, to understand the scale of the space inside me. The hum of enamel grew louder, resonating through every bone, syncing with my own pulse, vibrating through my ears like the subtle beating of a miniature drumline. A flash of light reflected off a sharp edge, revealing a tiny corridor carved between molars, impossibly deep, stretching farther than my mind could track, as if the inside body world was infinite. I pressed my tongue toward it, but the teeth resisted, subtly curling inward, corralling me, pushing me back, asserting their control with an intelligence older than memory. Soft whispers formed in the gaps between teeth, voices I recognized as neither mine nor human, repeating fragments of thoughts, names, and pleas that belonged to mouths long vanished. The hum shifted to a low growl, vibrating against my molars. I realized the teeth were alive, aware, capable of both warning and attack, poised somewhere between protection and aggression. I tried to pull away, but the pressure built. The teeth leaned in unison, pressing against my tongue and inner cheeks like they were molding me into something new. The glow deepened, filling every hollow space with light, revealing writhing shadows of previous mouths trapped inside, stretching endlessly. A network of teeth, tongues, and trapped consciousness, forming something immense. The sensation became almost unbearable, the whispers turning frantic, the pulse of memory and life too vast for my mind to hold entirely at once. A final vibration surged through the jaw, almost triumphant, leaving me gasping, tasting metal and history at once, and the teeth fell silent, as though letting me comprehend a fraction of their world. I sat in stunned silence, tongue pressing lightly to teeth that now seemed calm, aware I had glimpsed something far larger than my mouth, a living, infinite interior I could not escape. A soft, almost inaudible vibration reminded me this was only a beginning. The teeth were awake, aware, and their world stretched farther than my body could ever contain. If someone finds this record, subscribe, because I don't know how much of me remains outside, or how many mouths will wake to continue this inside body world.